Welcome to the Wolverine Digest podcast, the best spot for objective and authentic coverage of Michigan athletics. If you want open dialogue, honest opinions, and in-depth coverage of the maize and blue, this is the podcast for you. And now, here's your host, Brandon Brown, joined as always by Chris Breiler.
I was going to start by saying go blue.
Just so we don't. You brought it up several times now, Chris. I do feel really badly that we don't use that more often. So,
hold on
what do we got going on over there?
I think that was my volume.
Okay.
Volume on my phone here. Volume on
Somebody
my phone.
said the Twitter feed is down. That's interesting because it says it's good on my end. So, Jay, I apologize. My Twitter feed or like in general? Twitter's been weird lately. I don't know if you guys have been out there checking all that stuff out.
Twitter's been a strange place lately.
Anyway, I don't think that many people watch from Twitter because you can't comment there. I think like 97% of our viewers come from Facebook and YouTube. So if Twitter's not working, apologies, but it says it's good on my end. So we'll roll and see how it goes. But as you can see, I'm in a new location. Chris, thoughts? I mean, this is your first time seeing me too.
I mean, it looks very homey, looks very cozy, looks very what is it? What's the word I'm looking for? Where there's like, there's books. I mean, it looks very adult. Looks very mature where you're at.
So in other words, it doesn't fit me very well. That's the first thing I've
you look a little bit out of sorts there, like fish out of water over there.
Yeah.
I don't see
lay it out for everybody.
Thriller cover. I don't see any cleats behind you. I don't see any of that stuff going on.
No Chuck Norris. I mean, it's a different scene for sure. But no, obviously tomorrow's Thanksgiving, so hopefully everybody is settling in and enjoying whatever's coming up today, tomorrow, Friday, and then obviously Saturday. We'll get into all of that.
The boys gotten started on the carb intake a couple days early, man. I think that might be part of what I'm feeling here. I'm feeling a little bit, maybe slightly off, just maybe a tinge of sickness, but I think I've also been eating like shit for the last couple days. So hopefully that's all it is.
There you go. So, no, I'm in my hometown. I'm in New Lothrop. I'm staying at my parents for the week. Thanksgiving tomorrow, obviously. And I've talked about this before. Internet is not a real popular concept in New Lothrop. So I left and came over to my buddy's house. He lives in New Lothrop too, but he's got a little bit better setup. Told me that he does work calls from home all the time. So I'm here. This is actually like his wife's home office, which is why it looks so lovely and not fit for me. But hopefully the internet will cooperate and we'll be good to go. And we do have our fan-led Wednesday. So I'm excited about that. A couple people already throwing some stuff out there. Chris Fields being the first one. Thank you, Chris. He said he still hasn't alleviated his huge play-in Columbus anxiety. It is common. It's justified skepticism. What are the reasons that Michigan wins? Can we hammer those again? Chris, I don't know where you are on Wednesday, but I feel differently than I did last Wednesday or even a couple days ago. The injury thing, it sounds like the weather's not going to be like it was 50-some degrees today. If it's 50-some degrees on Saturday, even if there is a little bit of a spritz out there or rain, I don't think that's as big of an issue as it was for Ohio State last year or this other times this year. I don't know, man. I think the skepticism is justified, and it's probably going to be there until Saturday.
Yeah, I think I even said it on the show on Monday that last year I felt very, very confident going into that final game against Ohio State. I just felt like, the team and the mojo and everything was working, and it had a feeling like Michigan was going to pull that one out. And I don't know, man, over the last few days, the last week, I just, I'm not quite as confident as I once was. And I'd love to just sit here and be like, yeah, Michigan's going to win, super confident. But I feel like part of what, makes what you and I do work is that we're just honest about how we're feeling. And my confidence is a lot less today than it was a week ago at this point. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, I mean, look, like I picked Michigan to lose last year, and I was freaking wrong. Michigan took it to Ohio State and Ann Arbor last year, and this year, like leading up to the game and leading up through the last week or two, I was like, my slider has moved, dude. I think Michigan is going to win that game. What they do travels, the defense, the adjustments, the the scoring and the running game with Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards, and suddenly you've got multiple wrenches thrown into things here with arguably the top defender being nicked up and Mike Morris. Both running backs, Donovan Edwards and Blake Corum, certainly not at 100%. Luke Schoonmaker, who's been a big part of things, not at 100%. Trevor Keegan. I mean, you kind of go down the list. And yeah, Ohio State's working with some injuries too. I just think because of what Michigan is and what they want to do, the ones that they're dealing with they're big, dude. They are big. And like Chris and I have talked a lot about really not getting into the speculation of what the injuries are or who might play or might not. But I think one thing is a fact at this point. Those guys aren't 100%. Like, there's just no way that they can be. Like, you don't have to speculate about that at all. Like, there's a reason why they've been held out, and leading up to this game, I think they're going to give it a go.
Chris Fields, by the way, was looking for reasons to feel positive, and we just
Sorry. Let me rewind that and go back to
here's the thing, Chris. Anything can happen. Anything can happen on Saturday. And the one thing I do love about this team, and I was actually talking about this with a player's parent, and we were talking about the mental makeup of this team and how they're built upstairs. And I think that does count for a lot. I think they're going into Columbus believing 100% that they can win the game. And I do think that the mental toughness does count for a lot. Now, granted, they do have several injuries, and even if those guys are able to go, they're not going to be at 100%. And so you wonder what that's going to mean on the field once the whistle blows and they start playing. But look, man, here's what I'll say. And here's one of the things that I was looking into it today, and I was trying to figure out, why do I feel so concerned? Why is there's this lingering concern? And so I went through and I was trying to come up with numbers and stats. And I think the thing that jumps out to me the most is in conference play specifically, Ohio State is averaging 22.3 points per game in the first half. So they're scoring almost 23 points a game in the first half. In conference play for Michigan, they're 13.4 points per game. And so Ohio State is over a full touchdown better in the first half. And to me, right, that to me, that's the concern, is that you can't start slow and you can't go into the half trailing. And I think Ohio State is going to do everything they can to put points on the board early. I see somebody bringing up Jake Moody. Absolutely love Jake Moody, but I don't think he can be the focal point on Saturday. I think all of those field goals that you saw against Illinois have to be touchdowns on Saturday against Columbus. And I think that's my biggest concern is, can they put the ball in the end zone? Can they keep pace with the Buckeyes in the first half? If this thing goes into the half close, I love Michigan's chances in the second half, because in the second half, Michigan and Ohio State are pretty much even. Ohio State averaging 23.8 in the second half. Michigan right at 20 points per game against Big Ten competition in the second half. So OSU only plus 3.8. So keep it close in the first half. I like Michigan's chances. I like the way that they make second half adjustments. But to me, the biggest concern is Ohio State gets out to a fast start. Michigan's trying to play catch up. You can't rely on Jake Moody at that point. You've got to put the ball in the end zone. The passing game comes into play at that point. And we've seen, although there's flashes of it, potentially being elite, it is inconsistent at best. And I think that all of those things combined are, leading me to a point where I'm like, man, this is like a 50-50 game at this point.
We all love Jake Moody.
Love him.
All love Money Moody.
Love him.
I only want him kicking 1-pointers on Saturday. That's it. Like you can't get down into the red zone or within the 30 and really fizzle out and have to settle for trot number 13 out there. As good as he is, as automatic as he is, as consistent as he is, you can't do that in Columbus against this team that scores north of 45 points a game. And I don't know, Chris, you could probably go look back and check this too. I bet it's higher than that at home in the Big Ten. I bet they score more than that at home in the Big Ten. The fast starts, the explosive plays, like that's how they're built. And so, Michigan cannot afford to, kick a bunch of field goals on Saturday. Big shout out to Lee Brandon. Thank you for the kind words, man. Chris and I talk about this all the time, dude. Anytime anybody comes up to us and says anything like this, that we get you through the week. I saw right when we went live, someone was like, honey, the guys are on. Like that stuff is like, that's awesome. Soul food, man. That's fuel for the soul, man. That keeps me and Chris going. So it's mutual. We appreciate that. And thank you for that donation as well. I think there was one more super chat down here. All right. It was Blue Hart. CJ Stokes going to go for over 100 yards if he gets at least 15 carries. Look, I wouldn't put that past him. The kid can run the ball. Michigan's O-line can open up some holes. We know that's going to be – it sucks to say, but even if Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards can't go or at 50% or can't quite give what they normally give, and you've got to rely on a CJ Stokes, a Tavi Dunlap, and Isaiah Gash, I just don't think Michigan's going to change like anything that they do. I think they're going to run the ball with those guys just as much as they would with Corum and Edwards at this point, because you're in week 13 and that's what they do. And we've seen that the passing game is not exactly reliable at this point. So like, I don't know if that's a formula for success to lean on a true freshman who barely played during the middle 7 games of the season or whatever it was. But I do think that if Corum and Edwards are as dinged as they looked last week, where they weren't even in the game, you're going to have to give it to somebody. And I guess I'd rather it be Stokes than Isaiah Gash, the 180-pound walk-on.
What about Khalil Mullings? He showed a little something in the spring game. Khalil Mullings, looked like he might have been the best running back on the roster during the spring game. And he's a big physical guy. He plays linebacker, so he's got that sort of Hassan Haskins physique. Now, granted, I don't think you want to go to that in the final week of the regular season and start trying a bunch of new things. But yeah, there's little things that are adding up over the course of this last week here that just, look, when you spend the first 11 weeks of the season doing one thing pretty much and one thing only because nobody's proven they can stop it, and then you get into the final game of the year and your horse isn't at full strength, that's cause for concern a little bit. And especially if Michigan has to turn to the passing game to put points on the board. I think we've just seen that, when you miss deep, and I have said this a number of times throughout the year, when you do it against Iowa, when you do it against Indiana, when you do, hell, it almost cost them against Illinois. But when you miss those deep balls, whether it's JJ being off or Andrell not making the catch or whatever, when you're missing on those opportunities that would otherwise be 7 points, and you're either punting the ball away or you're turning the ball over on downs or you're settling for a field goal, I think that is going to spell bad news for Michigan and Columbus. They've got to capitalize. They've got to put points on the board in the form of touchdowns. And that's what concerns me the most, is that in the first half, they're only scoring 13 points a game. And we've seen that Ohio State can score at a high clip. So if it gets into a situation where Michigan's got to score touchdowns, they're look at what they did with Jake Moody. Jake Moody against Illinois scored the last 12 points for them. That's how Michigan won. It wasn't touchdowns. It wasn't getting the ball in the end zone. It was getting within field goal range, and 12 points was the difference from Jake Moody. I just don't think that's going to work against Ohio State. I know the defense is good, but I don't think it's good enough to keep them out of the end zone and shut them out in the second half. I just don't see that happening.
And if it does end up playing,
a bunch of negative Nancy's here on a Wednesday. What the hell?
If it does end up playing out like that, then so be it. But that's not the plan you should be rolling in with, to do this possession. I don't know. I just don't see it either. I think it's got to be lots of points.
Well, don't you see? Jared Johnson's got it figured out. This is all part of the plan. Jim Harbaugh, part of his plan was missing on all those deep balls all year because he wanted to fool the Buckeyes into thinking they couldn't really complete a deep pass. And now this Saturday in Columbus, JJ's probably going to go like 44 of 47 for 600 yards, 5 touchdowns through the air. It's going to be incredible. Flip that damn switch.
I don't remember where it was. I feel a little bad about using this room. I'll take a dump in this room if that happens. You see how glorious and beautiful this room is. I will live stream a dump in this room. So Emily, I'm sorry, but that's
I'll check with Emily on that one.
Yeah, I'll check with. Well, actually, who I would be checking with would be Rodney. It's not Emily. It's Rod. But anyway, let's have a word from our guy Rich at Mediascapes before we get into one CJ Frazier's question here on.
Hey, this is Rich from Mediascapes located in Burton. Let me fill you in a little bit about our business. We are a full-service sign and graphic company, from banners, yard signs to vehicle wraps. When it comes to marketing your business, we also provide video and photography services, as well as apparel and promotional items. If it's something that will make your business or organization stand out, we do it, and I guarantee we do it well. We are Mediascapes on Dorrit Highway, south of Bristol Road, just before Rock Bottom. Check out our work at Mediascapes.com. That's Mediascapes with a K.com.
Mediascapes with a K.com. There's the phone number, the location, and the tagline. Crazy to think that a season-long sponsorship from Rich and all the other people that have been involved is coming to a close. I look forward to doing more with them in the future for sure. But dude, we're on the last week of the regular season. It blows my mind every time I think about that. As much as we wait for it to get here, and then it just seems to go by so fast, man. Now I lost CJ's question. There it is. This is an interesting one because there's so much talk about what could happen. I mean, USC's got a couple of tough games. TCU is not expected to lose, but you never know. I mean, Georgia, the SEC championship, the 2-loss Alabama, Clemson in the 8. Like, there's so many storylines kind of coming to a head during this last week, none bigger than number 2 and number 3 Michigan and Ohio State playing. The CJ's question is, did the struggles of the other top 5 teams last Saturday make you feel any different about Michigan's performance? It did not for him, and for some it does. I agree with CJ. It didn't change anything for me. I mean, everybody's coming down to the wire here. These teams know it's like win or go home. I mean, it's that way for Michigan. It was that way for TCU. Georgia's like maybe the one team that if they stumble, it might not matter at this point because of how everybody views what they've done and the SEC schedule, and they're going to make the title game, etc. But no, it doesn't change anything. I mean, like, I feel like Michigan gets just about everybody's best shot, and it certainly is that way when they're number 3 in the country and undefeated. And Illinois is not a slouch, man. They've been playing solid complementary football all year. I would have liked Michigan to win by more than 2 and taking the lead with less than a minute to go. But no, I don't think it changed anything for me at all. Now, the availability of some of the most key players on the roster has a little bit of an effect on what I'm thinking, but not with how they beat Illinois and not how they've been, kind of hanging around some of these teams in the first half. That hasn't affected me at all.
Yeah, no, not at all. I mean, I feel, I know that a lot of the top teams struggled, and you'll get that from time to time. But, for me, it goes back to the way that I viewed Michigan all year. And has there been a podcast where we haven't talked about the passing game? I mean, we do what, 4 or 5 shows a week. And I feel like every single show we've talked about the passing game, even though I've come around to embracing the rushing attack. And for me, that has been something that has been in the back of my mind all year, is that at some point in the year, I feel like it's going to come back to bite Michigan. And I mean, here they are 11-0 going into the final game of the year. The scenario is setting up to where it looks like they might have to pass the ball more. You don't have Donovan Edwards, presumably. Blake Corum is banged up, even if he's able to go. He's not quite 100%. And so, yeah, I feel like seeing some other teams squeak out a win or having it be close or more difficult than you thought, it really didn't change my perception of who or what Michigan is. I've always wondered, how long can bully ball work? And will it get you far enough to get you back to Indy and possibly beyond? And we're going to find out on Saturday. And I think, again, I'm hanging my hat on the fact that this team is extremely confident in who they are and what they do. And I think Jim Harbaugh has been nothing but confident all year. He said, I think we're going to find out we're made of the right stuff. Mm-hmm. And, that's the beauty of this game, is that for all the talk about, the non-conference schedule, and the Big Ten isn't that good, and Indiana's awful, and Iowa's awful, Michigan State's awful. It turns out Penn State's a little bit better than it seemed early on. Mm-hmm. You go out and you win this game, and there's nothing anybody can say. This is a legitimate opponent on the road in a place that you haven't won in 22 years. I mean, I put out the number. It's like 8,000. I don't know, 8,043 days since Michigan has won in Columbus. And I was going through the roster, and I was trying to figure out, I was going to put out a list of like players who like were born before that. And there's not many. I mean, pretty much every single player on the Michigan roster was born after that last win. That's how long it's been. And so when you take all these things and you combine them together, that's probably why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling here on Wednesday, the week of the game. I'm a little bit nervous for it. I want it to go the way that we all want it to go. But there's also, I mean, to Chris Field's point, there's 22 years of, track record and experience as a fan. I mean, these guys that were playing in the game, I want them to have all the confidence in the world. But I mean, shit, like, I was there as a fan watching all of those losses and experiencing all of that. And it's not something you can just get out of your head easily.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was you, Chris, actually on Twitter. You put it out like Michigan beat Ohio State in Columbus on that day, and 7 days later, Blake Corum was born. I mean, like, that gives you an idea of what we're dealing with here. Like, Yeah, it's been a minute. Michael Hall, this is an interesting question. Chris and I touched on it a little bit last week. Here's how I see it. He asks, is there any chance that Michigan tries the freshman receivers to get a spark from the passing game? You're talking Darius Clemens, Amarion Walker, and Tyler Morris, who's actually played maybe more than those other two guys, which is surprising. He's coming off the knee injury. He's a smaller guy. But maybe it's because he fits into a position that's not as loaded, I guess is a way to put it. Like, whatever you think about Cornelius Johnson, whatever you think about Andrell Anthony and their production this year, and then, of course, Ronnie Bell, those guys hold down the outside pretty well. So it's a little tougher maybe for a Darius Clemens or Omarion Walker to find snaps ahead of those guys, whereas a guy like Tyler Morris, who can move into the slot a little bit, play off the line, closer to the O-line, like he's been able to get on the field a little bit more is what I'm saying. But to the question, I just don't see it. I don't. I mean, like, you're 13, 14 weeks in at this point. If these guys hadn't taken a big leap and grabbed a hold of some playing time over call a spade, man. Andrell Anthony has 6 or 7 catches on the year. You're not losing much by taking him off the field and putting one of these other guys in if they can produce. So I just feel like if they've been doing it in practice or you really feel like you could get a boost, then they'd have been in there, and they haven't been. So I just don't see it. Chris and I talked about it last week, and he said, one thing, he might not be this, he might not be that, in reference to Darius Clemens. And I'm like, well, one thing he is 6'3" or 4 and 210 pounds. He's a monster. Yeah. There's a reason why they're not in there. And I just don't really see at this point much changing with who's out there trying to catch these passes. And at the end of the day, if JJ's not giving them catchable balls, it doesn't matter who's out there. I mean, this last week we saw, I feel like, a few more drops than we've typically seen, but I don't think so. I don't think you go into Columbus mixing stuff like that up and counting on 3 true freshman receivers who have caught like 4 balls combined all year.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, in theory, it works. Like if we were playing, NCAA 2023 or whatever the hell, I guess it's not coming out till 2024. Yeah, I might try to throw in. Yeah, right. There's that. Another kick in the nuts. Might try to roll out some freshman receivers. Might try a bunch of different things. But I mean, the reality is, I just think if you haven't been doing it all year, I don't know that Columbus on the road against the number 2 team in the country is the time to try new things. And now I know that there's this school of thought that Michigan's going to open up this magical playbook. And I don't doubt that we might see some things on Saturday that we haven't seen throughout the first portion of the year. I get that, but I don't think it's all of a sudden going to look completely different than what it's looked for the first 11 weeks. And so, no, I don't think there's much of a chance that happens at all. I think and Brandon talked about this a little bit earlier, whether it's Blake Corum, whether it's Donovan Edwards, whether it's CJ Stokes, whether it's Isaiah Gash, whether it's, whoever else they want to trot out there. The Michigan offense is going to look pretty much similar to the way it's looked the first 11 weeks. And I think that it's just going to be a matter of, can their offensive line neutralize the Ohio State defensive line? And can they own time of possession? And that's going to be the difference maker. I just think they have been content and okay with using Jake Moody all day long throughout the year. And I just don't think you can do that this coming Saturday. I think they got to score touchdowns. And that's a little bit concerning.
This is hilarious. Not football related at all, but Chris has a couple young kids. I have a young son. Brandon Main says that his wife compares him watching us to their kids watching those toy unboxing videos on YouTube. She just doesn't understand it. We don't understand why the kids want. Like, you have your own toys to play with. Go play with them. Why are you watching other kids open them on a screen? I'm glad we can be that for you, Brandon. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
We've been relegated to unboxing toy videos for toddlers.
We are. Yeah. I'm totally fine with it. I feel like that's pretty much what I am.
That's fantastic. That's one of the best comparisons I've ever heard. Honey, the guys are on. And that's what she comes back with. That's like watching kids unbox toys.
My son does that. And I'm sure anybody out there who's got kids, the big thing now is they get on YouTube and they watch other kids play with toys and play with shit. Yeah. It's like, well, you have that in your room. Why don't you just go play with that? Because I'd rather watch this other kid play with it. So I don't understand it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Chris, we've hemmed and hawed a little bit. We've beaten around the bush. What is your confidence level right now on a 1 to 10 scale that Michigan will win the game on Saturday?
You want me to use my head here or my heart?
You're not going to like it, are you?
Look, man, I'm right now.
No, I need a number. Don't do that. We don't do that here. I need a number right now.
Listen, I'll put it at a 5. I'll put it at a 5.
Wow.
But that's not, the initial number that popped up in my head was a 4. I'm feeling a little, I'm feeling a little bit, I don't know, man. There's you just get a vibe, you get a gut feeling, and I had it last year going into the game. That's why I picked them to win. I was confident and I said that. And I think I might've been the only person in the market that picked them to win because I think the vast majority thought they would lose. But listen, I'd be at a 4 if it wasn't for the mental makeup of this team and the coaching staff. And I think that puts them at a 5. And that's probably where I'm going to be at, until the score goes final on Saturday.
Yeah. Shout out to Ron Crabb. He threw us a 5-piece. No question.
Hey.
Again, Ron, thank you for that.
Appreciate
you
you,
can
Ron.
put a question there if you want. And another comment from Chris Fields as we go through. He's ready for drinking. I mean, it's Wednesday night. Get the whiskey poured up. Get it going. Yeah, Michigan struggles with Illinois. I would not say Ohio State beat up on Maryland, by the way. It was a close game until the end with the pick 6 and the weird defensive stuff. But anyway, yeah, it was closer than the score indicated. But anyway, there you go. It's always whiskey o'clock. I mean, go ahead and do whatever you want to do over there, Chris Field. Is that what this is about? He just gets hammered and throws us money like Will.
I love it.
All day.
That's what life's all about. Get drunk and spend money. That's the deal.
One of these days when I get Chris to download that betting app, we will see that in its purest form. Getting drunk and just making it rain out there. All right, here's a specific question from Brad Volan. What do we think Roman Wilson will do? How's number 14 going to look in this game when you talk about I don't know, he jockeys between the 3rd and 4th option, I would say. Right? Probably the 3rd option, behind Ronnie Bell, from the receivers anyways. Ronnie Bell, Cornelius Johnson, then Roman Wilson. Certainly Andrell Anthony's in there a little bit mixed in. You've got the tight ends. Colston Loveland has emerged as of late. Donovan Edwards as a receiver. But, Roman has shown at times he can get you a couple touchdowns. He can blow the top off defense. He can turn a short one into a long one. But feels like it's been a while since we've seen him do much.
Yeah, I mean, he had some big catches down the stretch against Illinois. We've seen, early in the season when he gets the ball in his hands and he's got some space to work with that he can be deadly. And I do think a guy like Roman Wilson is going to have to play. He's going to have to factor in a lot on Saturday. You're going to need guys who can make big plays through the air. And Roman Wilson is one of those guys where you don't have to throw the ball 40 yards down the field and have him try to make a tough catch. You can get it to him 5, 6, 7 yards up the field. Just get him in space and let him do the rest. And so I think that's probably going to have to be a big part of the passing game. We've already seen that the deep ball really isn't there, but the mid-range intermediate passing game has been there. And JJ does complete a high percentage of those balls. And so I think that's maybe how you make up for the potential lack of production you're going to get out of the rushing game if Blake Corum is hurt, if Donovan Edwards isn't able to go, is that now you use that short to intermediate passing game and you try to get your yards there. And Michigan has proven that they can do that. Hell, it won them the game against Illinois. If you go back and you watch that 4th quarter, that was pretty much what got them in a position to win that game with Jake Moody. So that's a very long answer to say, yeah, I think Roman Wilson's going to have to play a pretty big role in Saturday's game if they're going to win.
I mean, it's like everybody. I think the receivers have to step up. You've got to connect on some of these. You've got to make plays, turn short gains into big gains, go get the deep ball. Well, JJ put it on them, be accurate. None of these sailing over their heads like we saw against Illinois. None of this missing guys by 2 or 3 yards on the deep ball when guys running free. I don't know how much guys are going to run free against Ohio State, but when they are, you got to hit them. We haven't quite seen that with enough consistency out of JJ and out of the receivers. And it's like 3 or 4 fold. I feel like JJ hasn't been overly accurate. The receivers haven't been huge playmakers for him, making tough catches and doing the dirty work. The route running has been average at best, I feel like. And the schemes to get guys open, I just don't see as being all that effective. Like it's a multiple layered issue with the passing game at this point. And I think all that stuff is magnified on the road in Columbus against the most talented team you're going to face all year. So I have a lot of concerns about that for Saturday. And
do we see Mike Sainer still line up in the slot on Saturday? Do we see him go over to the offensive side for a play or two? Just to get things going?
I wouldn't hate it. I feel like if somebody's going to get out there and do something the right way and maybe make a play, it could be that guy. But I wouldn't think so at this point. But you never know. It's not like he hasn't, he hasn't done it all year. But
that may be true. It might just be ghosts that are scaring us. Yes, Michigan might go in there and beat the shit out of the Buckeyes. It's also part of its stats and track record and just watching the games this year and how the two teams perform.
This is a rarity, but I'm going to do it. Back-to-back questions from Brad Volan because I like this question and the whole discussion about the playoffs and the rankings and who's where. What are our thoughts on LSU being at number 5 with 2 losses? This is what I can't stand about, they're talking about Michigan's strength of schedule. Okay. Is it worse for like a team like LSU to have lost to Florida State at the beginning of the year in New Orleans, by the way? No, it wasn't a home game, but it was in the heart of Louisiana. So is it better to lose to a shitty team than blow one out by 40? I don't know. The committee almost is saying no. Like if Michigan loses, like they are done. There's no chance that they can make it back in. And then you've got LSU sitting there with 2 losses. I know they beat Alabama. I get it. But we've seen Alabama's not what they've been in the past 10 or 15 years. And they got their asses kicked by Tennessee at home. And it's like, nah, that's fine. They've lost 2, at 5. Michigan loses, they're done. We'll still get – I don't understand it. I don't understand what they look at when they see LSU and they see Brian Kelly and that fake accent and all that gaudy purple and yellow. I don't get it. They got beat by Florida State to open the season. That's a middle-level ACC team, and they got absolutely donkey kicked by Tennessee on their home field. I do not understand the love for LSU being at number 5 with 2 losses.
Yeah, I just think the situation with the playoff committee has been an ongoing thing. I mean, every single week it seems there's always questions about what's the thought process and what's the motive and what's going into, why they're putting certain teams where. And I think at the end of the day, it's further reason why playoff expansion is needed, because a committee that puts a 2-loss LSU team at number 5, it doesn't make any sense. And I mean, pretty much anybody outside of the state of Louisiana is asking the same questions. Why? Like, how does that happen? And I don't know, man. I've racked my brain trying to figure out. Yeah, that's what I did when I saw that at number 5. That was exactly what I did when I saw that at number 5. And the committee just, I think I don't know how it's going to look in the future and what it's going to look like when the playoff expands. But to me, it's almost like the committee is useless. It's pointless. I think it's a bunch of people that kind of know football, kind of don't, still place a high value on an Alabama when an Alabama maybe isn't that great. I just think these are people that aren't watching all of the games every weekend. And if you're not doing that, how much value can you provide by sitting back and saying, well, Bama's this, LSU's this, Georgia's this. And then we know Georgia's good. They're living up to it. But you get what I'm saying.
I will say, too, I've always kind of wondered, like, why you put people in there who have clear ties to things that are pertinent right now. Like, I guess it's cool that Ward Manuel's in there, but should he be? Should Ward Manuel be making decisions about where these teams are ranked? Personally,
I think Ward Manuel should be making those decisions.
He's the athletic director of the number 3 team. Who do you think he would pick if it came down to like a Michigan or a Tennessee or an LSU? Like, I don't get that. Like, it's weird to me.
Listen, it should be Ward Manuel, Jim Harbaugh,
right.
Just in a room deciding. That to me, that's the committee.
I think it's a flawed system. I think going to 12 will make it a lot more interesting. And honestly, dude, there seems to be a lot of talk about this. I don't really know why. Not to discredit your question, Brad, but I think Georgia's going to pound LSU, so it probably doesn't even matter. They're going to have 3 losses before it's all said and done. But yeah, they're sitting there at number 5. I don't get it. I think USC's got a real shot to lose to Notre Dame this year. Dude, I've watched USC a handful of times this year. They have zero concept of what it is to play defense. None. That game between USC and UCLA was just track back and forth,
baby.
I was like, all right. I mean, it's pretty fun to watch, but I think Notre Dame's playing better right now. They play a little bit more like the Big Ten.
Let me ask you this, because we've talked about this a number of times throughout the year, where it's Michigan goes out, they defeat a team handily, but the game itself is boring as shit.
Yeah.
Do you prefer that over what you've seen with USC, where there's not much defense, but there's a whole hell of a lot of offense, and it's kind of fun to watch? I mean, does that type of thing have an impact on the committee? Does that have an impact on the way people perceive things? Because to be quite honest, and look, I love Michigan. I've devoted my life to like covering the team. I spend a good portion of my day every single day working on something Michigan football related. But I will say, it is a somewhat boring brand of football, right?
Yes. It is, and that's okay because Michigan's won every game. LSU has not. USC.
Do you think those things impact the way a committee views a team like Michigan when it is that way?
I think so, and I mean, I'm right there with you. All I do is Michigan all day, every day. But I'll tell you what, I'd rather watch Caleb Williams or Dorian Thompson-Robinson throw it around than JJ McCarthy right now, and that's just a fact of the matter. And if you're talking about the end result, you clearly take what Michigan's done. I mean, that's a no-brainer. They've won every game. But if you could say, all right, give me an 11-0 USC team and an 11-0 Michigan team, and USC's winning games 52-37, I'd rather watch that. I would. Yeah. I'd rather a win is a win. Cool. I'm not really for the 20-14, 20-13 games where it's like nobody can score, and it's just I don't know, dude. Call me a victim of the video game era, but I want to see points, big plays, long runs, long passes. That's what I like to watch. But at the end of the day, you want to win, and right now Michigan is winning. So that to me is the ultimate trump card. It's so weird to me that LSU is like getting more credit for losing to a good team than Michigan is for beating up on a not good team. Like, isn't winning the point? I just, it's bizarre to me, dude. I don't get that.
Yeah.
And like I said, it probably isn't going to matter. Michigan, Ohio State have to play. I think LSU is going to lose. Whatever. We'll see we'll see how it plays out. But it is a little bit strange. There's Ron. I'm going to at least put his name on the screen this time. Ron Crabb.
Did we confirm that Ron is out in where the hell is it at? Where is it?
Malaysia.
Malaysia. Yeah, Malaysia. That's right. Did we confirm that?
I can't remember if he did confirm that. Malaysia Ron. There he is. There's this comment.
Yes, sir.
Wants to wish both of us and everyone listening a happy Thanksgiving. Sunny at 83 where Ronnie Crab is. Oh, my God. He's going to drink Mai Tais.
Wow. What a life. What a life out there, Ron Crab.
Mike Fort, I'm going to catch a lot of heat for this. I did like the Rich Rod era.
Except for the...
Except for the end
result, which is what we were talking about.
Yeah, I didn't like the losses, but give me a Denard Robinson ripping off 80-yarders on zone read keepers in the early 2000s when Rich Rod was the pioneer.
Incredible. It was incredible.
Yeah, he wasn't even there to do it, but I'm saying had he stayed longer, the next year might have been 9 or 10 wins. Then you're talking about, look, Rich Rod got hosed. He only got 3 years. He was building things in the right direction. He got less time than Brady Hoke, and Brady Hoke was going in the other direction because he was a Michigan guy. Yeah. Anyway, don't get me going on that tangent.
John Bacon write a book about that? I believe John Bacon wrote a book about that.
I read it multiple times. 3 and Out was the story about Rich Rod. He got hosed from day one, even by some of his own, man. He was cannibalized by some of his own. So anyway, there you go. All right, let me find another question, Chris. We can get talking a little bit more on this. Well, I'm going to throw this to you, Chris, because you and I have been some of his top supporters all year.
Yeah,
I think we've addressed it over the last couple of weeks that maybe we just liked Andrell more than we should have because of he looks like he's got. No, it's not even because it looks like he does have it. We saw it.
Yeah,
we saw it in East Lansing last year. Would you put Andrell Anthony on the bench and give one of those freshmen his reps? It's not a lot of reps. He's not playing that much.
No, I would give Andrell more reps. That's what I would do. I would give him more because I went back and watched the Illinois game, and I know that he had that big drop in the end zone, but there was also one where he did, like a double move at the line, got himself wide open, and JJ just simply missed. So would I bench JJ for the same reason? To me, this is a group effort of why the passing game isn't working well. And if you sit Andrell, who else are you going to bring in? Somebody that has less reps, less experience, and maybe that might help in terms of the confidence because they haven't experienced all of the drop balls or all of the misfires that are coming from the quarterback. But to me, no, you do exactly the opposite. You get Andrell in space. You do the same thing I said you do with Roman Wilson. 5, 6, 7 yards out. You get the ball in his hands, get him used to touching the ball so that when you throw it to him deep 40 yards down the field, he's already got a couple of receptions. And I will say this, and I know I personally gave the Buckeyes a lot of shit for, being affected by the weather. It was cold last weekend. I can't imagine it was easy to throw the ball. Can't imagine it was easy to catch it. I'm not trying to make excuses for these guys, but that was just not an ideal situation to be able to be throwing the ball down the field and making deep catches. And so, no, I don't think you sit Andrell. I think you give him the ball more, and it's the same thing I've been saying all year, and it hasn't happened. And I think that's part of why you're seeing the inconsistencies. It's not that Andrell isn't as good as we thought. He is, and he can make big-time catches. But you also you got to get him the ball more. You got to get him more involved. You can't ask him to block for 40 minutes and then on minute 41, ask him to go out and make a big catch. It doesn't work like that.
To steal a basketball analogy, shooters shoot, right? You hit a little cold streak. You got to keep putting them up. You got to keep getting shots up. You got to find the rhythm.
Listen, Malachi, it doesn't matter. First of all, I'm not sure how he ran the wrong route. And even if he did run the wrong route, he got open. JJ threw him the ball, and the ball was just off. So you can't put that all on Andrell Anthony. I mean, it's partially Andrell. Yes, there's no doubt about it. He's got to catch the ball when it hits him in the hands. Yeah. But there have also been misfires as well, and it's a combined effort.
It's like I said earlier. I can, right off the top of my head, I can find 4 layered reasons why the passing game has not been connecting. It's JJ, it's the receivers, it's the route combinations, it's the separation. I mean, it's a lot of different things that go into it. And you're talking about 4 or 5 different guys on every single pass play. And if one thing here or there doesn't work right, it's not going to hit. And unfortunately, we've seen that way too often out of Michigan this year. All right, before we get into the final 20 minutes or so here, Chris, we are going to attempt we're not going to attempt. We're going to be there. I'm interested to see how long it's going to be and what time it's going to be, when Chris and I get back from Columbus. But Wolverine State Brewing Company, Nate and the fellas and ladies over there have been incredible to us all year long. Every time we go in there, they're more than accommodating. They usually give us the private back room. They helped Chris hook up his own signature beer this year, which I know was, I think I saw a tear stream down Chris's face when he held that first black winged helmet beer can. But Nate and everybody over at Wolverine State Brewing Company has been outstanding all year, and we're going to be there on Saturday. Golly, I hope within 4 hours of the game ending. I mean, that's
celebrating a W for God's sake.
Right.
That's what we need. I mean, listen, if we come back to Michigan, when we come back to Michigan with a W,
we'll be back.
Well, yeah, I mean, but we're bringing a W back with us, and we're going to Wolverine State Brewing Company to celebrate. Just what was an incredible regular season, I think, for us from a professional standpoint, from a fan standpoint, just being able to experience everything we did. And then, we talked about how great our sponsors have been and how this season has flown by quickly. And Wolverine State Brewing Company has been such a huge, if you've stopped by the RV, if you've come to one of the tailgates, if you've had food and you've had drinks, it's been because Wolverine State Brewing Company has provided it. And those guys are they always come through in the clutch. Every time I'm there, they treat us like we're family. I absolutely love that place. And whether or not you're there with us or you're going there at a different time, if you're in Ann Arbor, you got to make a stop there. It's just such a great place. Great food, great beer, great people.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself. It's been great. I've known Nate for a long time now. I'd work with him for the rest of my days, man. Everything has been, just above and beyond when it comes to being nice and helping us out, hooking stuff up here and there. It's been fantastic.
Yep.
Real quick, we're not going to spend much time. Didn't even know they were playing tonight. Whoops. Sorry, everybody. But basketball is playing. Is it Jackson State or Jacksonville State? I always say it incorrectly. I do remember that they're playing now that I see that. I just wasn't gearing up for it, but I think Michigan is expected to beat them by a lot if I remember looking at it earlier this week. But, dude, at this point, the way this team has shot the ball and let other teams shoot the ball for a couple. Jackson State, who's 0-3, by the way. I'll say yes then. Michigan needs to beat them by at least 5. Probably needs to be a double-digit win. Michigan is 4-1. The loss to Arizona State was pretty ugly, and the other ones have been close against what we would typically see as inferior opponents. But, yeah, I think they should handle Jackson State today. I'm trying to pull up the odds. So I know, Chris, I'm going to speak for Chris that we didn't do a lot of prep on the Jackson State game tonight.
No. I did zero prep on it. You know why? Yeah. Because I'm all in on the game. I'm all focused on Ohio State. I wake up, I think about Ohio State. I eat breakfast, I think about Ohio State. I eat lunch, I think about Ohio State. I get in the shower, I don't really think about Ohio State in there. But you get the idea. It's all Ohio State all week for me. To me, there's not even a basketball program right now. I have no idea what's going on. I'm locked in to the gridiron. I'm committed.
That was a bit harsh. I mean, I wouldn't say that the basketball program doesn't exist. It doesn't exist
in my mind. Not this week. Sorry, it's not there.
My concern is
Michigan and Ohio State. That's all that's there right now. Okay, number 3 versus number 2.
But yeah, no, Michigan needs to win that game. Michigan needs to win that game by more than 5. That's an 0-3 team that needs to be run out of the gym by a team like Michigan, and that's what they need to do. So I'll put that. We got porn. We do got porn. It only took 45 minutes to get porn in here. Not too bad this time. I blocked them, which should be good. I'll throw that question up there for Uncle Mikey in just a second. We had another donation. That's what I was looking for. Thank you for Beamer's goiter. I think Frank Beamer beat cancer or something. We might want to tone that one down just a bit. It's not really a goiter. I think it's a skin graft for the legendary coach. So just pump the brakes a hair on that one. But interesting username to say the least. But look, here's the deal. I don't know who's going to make the biggest impact for Michigan on Saturday, but I'll tell you who it needs to be. On offense, it needs to be JJ McCarthy, bar none. You don't know what you're getting out of Blake Corum. You don't know what you're getting out of Donovan Edwards. The dude has to be sharp as nails through the air, making decisions on zone read keepers.
And it's time, damn it.
Yes, it's time for him to show why he won the job and build on as good as he looked earlier in the year. I mean, I don't know how much it's going to change from last week to this week, but he needs to be on point. And on defense, I don't know if it's one guy. I think they just need to hit CJ Stroud as many times. Coleridge, sorry. They need to hit Coleridge as many times as they possibly can on Saturday. Every time they can put a lick on him, they need to put him on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you said on offense. For me, it has to be JJ McCarthy. He has been, people waited 2.5 years during that recruitment for him to get to campus. We knew it was only a matter of time before he took over the starting job. He earned that starting job in week 2. He had a hell of a game against Hawaii. And then it's been okay. It's been okay during the year, but he wasn't brought here to be an okay quarterback. And I think if JJ McCarthy is going to have the game of his life, then Saturday is the time to do it. I don't see any reason why this kid shouldn't have a massive, massive impact on the offense, given what he's able to do athletically, whether it's with his arm, whether it's getting out and creating on the perimeter, using his legs, running the ball. I don't care what it is. JJ McCarthy, whatever he's got in the tank, anything that he's been holding back, it's got to be emptied out on Saturday. He has to have a good game on Saturday for Michigan to pull this one out. The thing I love about him, the mental makeup, when you saw it after the game, I think whoever was interviewing him after the Illinois game, they said, why is Michigan, prepared to win this game? He said, we're better than last year. This team's better than last year. The way that he's wired upstairs, I absolutely love it. It's got to translate into, look, he's a nice kid. The meditation thing, love it. He's got to be a killer on Saturday. He has got to go out, take control of the game, and make big plays from the jump. Not when Michigan needs him after they're behind. He's got to impact the game early, especially if a guy like Blake Corum isn't at 100%.
He's competitive and he's a winner. It just has to be on another level. He's got to find a switch and just, like you said, be a killer, be a sniper. Know that everything he's ever done is working toward. Yeah, dog. Dog. There it is. Working towards this point, dude. That's what it's got to be about. And I don't question his mental makeup or preparation or knowledge of the situation or want to or draw. I don't question any of that. It just has to manifest itself into production and making big plays on Saturday. Like,
isn't it okay to expect your starting quarterback to go out and
absolutely.
just ball out? Just ball out? Like,
yes.
And that's what I expect on Saturday. It's time, damn it. And I'm going to be down there shooting photos, and I want to get some great photos of him carving up that Ohio State secondary. So however he does it, whether it's with his legs, whether it's with his arm, I don't care. I don't think he's overrated. I don't think it's overrated. I think it's more system than it is JJ. I think it's more system than it is JJ.
Well, while we're on the topic of JJ McCarthy, I think this is a good question from Christopher Brown. This is the final regular season game of the year. Yes, Cade McNamara is done for the season.
Wait a minute. First, he loves us. Can we
okay, yes. Thank you for that.
We love you too, Christopher Brown.
We love you back, and I love you back. But there no more of this, like, well, we're trying to protect him a little bit, like, don't run. Nope. No. You got to lay it on the line. You got to lay it all on the line, because if you don't, and then what happens after this anyways doesn't really matter. I mean, it does. Like the Rose Bowl, whatever, like, cool. No, go win the Big Ten championship, go to the playoff again, cement your legacy as a sophomore starting quarterback at the University of Michigan. And I wanted to say this too. Like, I know JJ is a little slight. He's listed on the Michigan website at 6'3", 196. Dorian Thompson-Robinson for UCLA is listed at 6'1", 205. First things, Chris, does that 9 pounds make that big of a difference? And if you've watched that kid play this year, that dude, there is no holding back on him at any point ever during the game. He's out there lead blocking, and I know JJ does some of that too. But like the propensity to run, the way that they use him, and you can go down the line with all the big time quarterbacks. Caleb Williams is a lot bigger. He's thicker. He's probably 225 at USC, but they use him like a fullback at the goal line. I mean, like, dude, that's your starting 5-star quarterback that you need to make game-winning plays. Make them. Yeah. You can't do this protecting him from contact anymore. He's got to be smart about it, but I don't think you should take plays out of the playbook because you're a little bit worried about what he might do if he takes a hit. No, especially when he's one of the biggest playmakers they have on the offense. Yes. I mean, he is the closest thing to a true dual threat quarterback that Michigan has had probably since Denard Robinson. I mean, I can't think of another guy who's posed that kind of a threat through the air with his legs. And so, yeah, I mean, if you're still holding it back for Ohio State, then what's the point of even having it? You know, I think that there has been something to the fact that when Cade McNamara was injured and you didn't have really that true backup quarterback, that maybe there was more of an emphasis on protecting JJ throughout the season because you didn't know when or if you were going to get Cade back. And it turns out they're not getting him back for the year. And that's not a knock against Davis Warren or guys like Alex Orji, but they haven't played the games that Cade McNamara has played. They don't have the experience that Cade McNamara has. So when you don't have a backup quarterback like that at your disposal, I think that, well, Shea Patterson was okay. He wasn't anywhere. I wouldn't compare him to what JJ McCarthy is. So we'll just put that out there. At the end of the day, I think you have to and that's maybe been the biggest frustration all year, is that it just feels like JJ hasn't been able to be JJ, that he's played within a system that is designed to run the ball a lot, and he plays within that system. And that's why his numbers look nearly identical to Cade McNamara's numbers from 2021. This is the game where you got to let him go out and play his game. And hopefully what that means is, you know, a more potent offense for Michigan that's quite frankly going to need it. They're going to need to score touchdowns. Field goals aren't going to cut it. And if, you know, I would love to be wrong. If it turns out and it's like a 19-14 game and Jake Moody once again goes out and he's hammering 5 field goals and Michigan wins, then fine. I'll eat a damn shoe at that point if that's how it turns out. But I just don't see that being the case. I think they're going to absolutely need touchdowns. And one of the ways you do that is you let a guy like JJ go out and play the way that he's used to playing. There you go. Shane Johnson, more of a declaration than a question, but we appreciate the donation. Happy Thanksgiving to all, to us, to you, Shane, to everybody else that's in here right now. He says that Michigan's breaking the 20-year drought Saturday, the toilet seat, the series tie, all that. It's all going to be broken. He's betting everyone's going to show up. They want it badly beat Ohio. There's no doubt. There's no doubt about the want. There's no doubt about the stakes. There's no doubt about Michigan being a confident team based on how they played last year and what's happened this year. They're just on an incredible run over the last 2 seasons, but the injuries make a difference, and going to their house, that's a big deal. I think Michigan is built in a certain way that could get it done, but a lot of it's going to depend on making plays when you've got them to make, scoring touchdowns, as Chris has said multiple times, and how much are you getting out of your key guys at key positions. I just think those are some big factors. Darren M., I don't know if you wrote the word super sticker, if that just came through, but we appreciate that. And I think there was one more down here if I could find it, and we're getting close to the final gun here, Chris. So we're gonna try to find a couple more questions to kind of close this out as we're hitting the 55-minute mark. You'll eat a shoe. Yeah, Chris is gonna eat a shoe. I'm gonna take a dump. It's gonna be a phenomenal show. Whenever we do that show, you'll really want to tune in whenever we decide to do
You'll poop shoe show.
Got another Ohio State fan in here. I don't know why. Go do something. Leave us alone.
What else would you do if there's nothing to do there? There's
go pick
nothing
the trash up out of your yard. Go pick the trash up out of your yard. Put it in a bucket. Get it out of there. Clean up the area a little bit. Just leave us alone. We're trying to do our thing here. And first of all, you're an idiot because what you're typing is not even what we said. Suddenly, JJ is going to sling it all over the field. Go watch back 55 minutes and tell us where we said that. Dumbass. Leave us alone. Stupidity bothers me, dude. It's one thing that I just don't have much of a lead.
One of the hardest parts about this job and running a social media platform is the amount. And look, there was like a solid week there where the social media page, at least the Facebook page, was bombarded by fans from Tennessee, all kinds of hillbillies. And then they go out and get their ass kicked by South Carolina and they just run back to the hills. So they're gone. And now the Buckeye fans are coming in. And I got to be honest. I mean, some of these people, I'm not going to go. I mean, it's just it is a weird bunch of folks that are out there.
The hills have eyes. Look, to Jared Johnson's credit, he did spell dilute. He's got to be using some software. Something. I don't know how good Facebook is about correcting misspelled words.
Well, I think when you're in prison, you're not allowed to type. You actually have to talk it into the microphone. So maybe that's what it is.
Actually, when you speak things, yeah, but I don't know. He wouldn't even know the word delusional. So I think we're giving too much credit there.
That's true.
I think we're giving too much credit there. All right. Spell check. Yeah, maybe Joe. Actually, Joe, you had a good question earlier, dude, and I forgot to put it up there. And, where did it go? I'm not going to be able to find it. It was a long time ago. But Chris, the question from Joe, and I just remembered it because I saw his name pop up there again. I think this is an interesting one. It's a dynamic we've talked about before with Michigan, with Ohio State, with Michigan State, Notre Dame to some extent. I hope I'm wording it correctly, Joe, but he basically asked, is your hatred for Ohio State stronger than your love for Michigan? Or I'm not sure if he worded it exactly like that, but do you hate Michigan or do you hate Ohio State more than you love Michigan? Or where does that fall? For me, there's a sprinkling of respect with Ohio State that does not exist with Michigan State.
Yep.
That makes it a little different for me. I thought that was a good question that he asked earlier.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love Michigan more than I hate Ohio State. Now, if you were to ask me that same question about Michigan and Michigan State, I love Michigan, but and this goes back to the early stages of the D'Antonio era. My hatred for that program and for that school just grew tremendously. Still would say I would give the edge to Michigan. Love Michigan more than that, but I hate Michigan State.
There it is. We just had to give him enough time. Doesn't know the right affected. You were close, man. Casey, you were close. You were close, brother. Hey, check that out.
Can't wait for your tears on Saturday.
He really blew it on this last comment, dude.
Jeez. It's not the one you want to go out on, Casey.
Used the wrong affected, didn't know what word to use for that last sentence. Yeah, that's par for the course. We just had to give him enough time. You give them enough time, they will expose themselves 100% of the time. So there it is. There it is. Perfect.
Yeah.
And then, Lizzie, why are you here? Like, what are you doing? You know what? Well, you know where I don't go is onto Ohio State podcast.
Never. I've never done that.
What's wrong with you?
I don't know. It's a weird energy. But I mean, when you look at the people doing it, like I said, like I'll find myself wanting to argue with these people on social media, and then I click on the profile and I look at who this person is, and it's like, holy shit, I can't believe I almost gave 10, 15 minutes to this individual, because it is scary. There are some strange folks out there, and a lot of them reside in the state of Columbus. We'll just put it that way.
And look, you know, at the end of the day, Michigan has had their troubles with Ohio State. Like, that's not what this is about.
No.
That's weird. That's weird for being in here.
And then you come here and you spell wrong, and your grammar's all off, and it's like,
yeah,
you're representing the state of Ohio very well, on point.
Right. Unfortunately, that has also kind of hijacked the last like 50 questions. I'm trying to find like a football question that we can kind of finish off with here, as we are now at the 1 hour mark. I don't know. Give him some credit. He did come in and hijack the thread a little bit. I'm not sure if that's what he was trying for, but yeah, I know, Rico. I'm trying to get away from that a little bit.
We're not. We're not. Stop complaining. Christ.
Man, I don't know what else to grab here from everybody that's kind of coming down the final stretch here. I'll ask it this way, Chris. I've seen a couple people bring it up in the comments. The offensive coordinator situation with Michigan. You've got Sharon Moore down on the field coaching the O-line, listed as the offensive coordinator. You've got Matt Weiss up in the booth, also listed as offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach. Based on what we've seen from Michigan's offense this year, we've talked about it all year. I honestly don't have a lot of criticism when it comes to like making really bad calls. I mean, like, there's been times where I'm like, God, they shouldn't have run it again there or that way. But like, again, it's worked. Blake Corum's having an incredible season. The O-line's been dominant. We've talked about this before, but now that we're 11 games in, how are you feeling about the 2 OC system? I think I said way back when I would never do it. If I was running a football program, I'd have one guy. It would either be me as the head coach calling the plays, or I'd have one guy doing it. I don't like the two-man approach at all.
The two-man approach, I would say, isn't preferable. It's not ideal. It's not, if I had a choice in the matter, I wouldn't have it, and I think I've said this a number of times throughout the year. I don't think it's caused an issue with the play calling. I think that Sharon Moore and Matt Weiss work within a framework that Jim Harbaugh has built. I don't necessarily know that they have free reign to call the types of play. Now, again, I'm not in the building, so I'm speculating here, but based on what I've seen and what the numbers look like, and even when you compare the numbers to, Jim Harbaugh's time at Stanford, it's just very, very similar. He's got a certain style of offense that he likes, and I think Sharon Moore and Matt Weiss are operating within that offense. So, no, I don't think the fact that they have two guys has been a big issue. Still wouldn't prefer it. Would still love to have one signal caller, but that is what it is.
That's exactly where I'm at. I can't really go back and point to like multiple occasions where I'm like, that's terrible, because of I don't think already. I think overall the scheme and how Harbaugh approach thing and just what they do in general has rubbed me the wrong way a couple times. But like, I can't think of any specific example where I'm like, if they had just one guy, it would be much, much better. I just don't really think I can remember any at any point really believing that. And it goes back to, like trotting a Matthew Hibner or a Max Bredesen in there at fullback. And I'm like, yeah, that's not Sharon Moore or Matt Weiss. That's Jim Harbaugh all day long doing that. We saw it every year he's been there. It just is what it is at this point. So, all right. Well, we're at an hour and 3 minutes. It's about that time to get heading on out of here. Mosey on. You don't got to go home, but you got to get the hell out of here, just like me and Chris.
Be
Chris
safe
is
tonight.
home. I'm not yet. I will.
You're embarking, if you're going to be embarking out and hitting up the bar scene, which I haven't done in years. I keep forgetting that this is a really, really big bar night here in the United States of America. But if you're venturing out, be safe. Get home safely to your family. And, I'm excited to get back here on Friday and talk about the game one more time before we head on down to Columbus, man.
Yeah, and we'll be doing that from our friendly. It should be an awesome show. It should be awesome show. Whereas we're maybe out on the road or we can't even do it because we're traveling, something else gets in the way. We'll be sitting right where we're back home, Chris home, and we'll do a good on Friday and really tie it all together to what we're going to be hopefully watching a Michigan win on Saturday, dude, because golly, Ryan Hayes said it. If they don't win this one, does the rest of the season really even matter? Like, that's a player on the team saying that, so that's what they think.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I really want to have a nice drive home, come back to Wolverine State Brewing Company, tie one on a little bit, get some nachos.
Lit at Wolverine State Brewing Company. Man, if they win, look out.
And be talking about a Michigan win and a 12-0. I was trying to put a nice cap on the game on the pod right here with a comment that somebody made. Now I lost it. Oh, here we go. Just working on my moves. Napoleon Dynamite with the Gatorade bottle. I always go to that, dude. I always go to that way of drinking a Gatorade bottle. All right, man. I'm getting out of here. My family's waiting on me. Time to go.
Appreciate you, Casey Dyer. Have a great night. Have a great evening. Thank you for your contribution to the show.
Good God, dude. Never at one point did you or I use the word exposing Ohio State's defensive backs. He listens like he spells, folks. He listens like he spells.
Is it a he? I thought it might be a she with Casey.
Women are too smart to be that dumb. Right? I mean,
it's true.
It's true. They're smarter than us. It's fine.
I love that.
Anyway. All right, Chris.
You
have a good one with your family. I will have a good one with
everybody.
mine.
Have a great Thanksgiving. Everybody have a great Thanksgiving.
Do the same thing. Later.